One of the most common formatting changes you make to spreadsheets is taking a row and making it larger, meaning making it taller or shorter, or taking a column and making it wider or skinnier. So as you go through your spreadsheets, you'll want to know how to do that and what your options are so that you get it exactly the way that you want it. I pulled the template for a family budget. This is a template from Microsoft, and it's just giving a generic name, Smith Family Budget. Cash available, income type, expenses, and then you have it by month. And on the right, you have totals, and you even have some trend graphs, so it's pretty slick. Now, when I'm looking at this worksheet, one of the reasons that you tend to, let's say, work with columns is because the information inside of it needs to be either smaller or larger, so you can shrink it or make it larger. Now, to make columns larger, let's just work with one for now, is you can get in between the columns. So I'm just right in between C and D here. I left click and it shows me the current width, 11.29, and I can drag it over and that will do it for the column. Okay. Now that's nice when that's all you got to do. You can move it back and forth to make it larger or smaller. But you can also do it for multiples. So if I want to do it for all of these, then I can drag it. Now notice that column O is a little bit larger than the rest, but I'm just going to go ahead and move these open. Now that's one way to do it. You can also drag select a group of columns. So you're just dragging over them. You can right click within one of those columns, and you want to do it on the header, and you can do column width. And you can say, what I really want is I want these all at or near 16 points. So I click OK, and now we're looking, right at 16 here. Okay, so these are large enough to accommodate probably larger font sizes. So what I really want to do here is I want to select the fonts, and I make it easier to read. So I'm going to bring it up to like a 12 point. Okay. So that is one reason to do it. I'm going to increase the font size so it's easier to read. I need to make the column wider, otherwise it's not going to fit within each of those columns. So that's a good reason to do that. Also, you'll notice the height on these. They're at 21 point. And that may be fine. It may also be crunching up the numbers or the data. So you may want to go into selecting all these rows and then left click and drag it down, and it's distributing that out. So you got 3.4, 34.5, and they all came out that way, which is what it's supposed to do. So now I've got, looks like enough height on this. Let me come on over here and let's bring that up to 12 point. Okay. It's already wide enough, I know that much, unless these numbers tend to be very large, but they look like they're all about the same sizing or number of places to the left of the decimals. So you've got plenty of room to work with. It's a little bit easier to read. But as you do these kinds of things, be aware that you're impacting all the way across the worksheet and all the way down the worksheet. So what may work up here may not work down here. So again, just be very aware of what you have on your sheets so that you can adjust them. Now, the one thing we didn't do that we did for the columns, I'm going to drag through here, is we did a specific width for columns. Now let's do row height. And let me click up higher so you can see that. Row height. And right now it's at 21. Let's make it 22. And we click OK, and now all of those are a little bit larger just to space it out a little bit nicer across the worksheet. So that is how to modify your cell width and height. Basically, you're doing it in the rows and the columns. Now there is one more tip that is very useful for modifying cell width and height, and that's called AutoFit. So let me create the problem. Let me make this column really skinny. Now, anytime you see those pound signs, that means the column is not wide enough to display the information. In fact, if you go over that cell, it says there is data there. It's just not wide enough. Now, you could just drag it open, but if you get in between the two columns, okay, we're looking at the right column here. So I'm to the right of the D column and just to the left of the E column. You get that two-headed arrow and then a line in between. If you double-click that, it'll auto-fit. Now, you can do that on more than one column at a time. You just have to select the columns that you're going to work with and then just get in between one of them and double-click, and it will do all of them. Now, it does it just wide enough to show it, so it doesn't guarantee that anything new will be okay. Now, for whatever reason, it doesn't do that for rows. So let's try it here. If I shrink this row, or actually that expanded that one, it just gets really tiny. It doesn't indicate that it can't see anything. But you can double click the rows to do the same thing to make sure that at a height that will accommodate the information that's in there. Now, sometimes you don't do that because look what it's doing. It is accommodating everything. But that's where you go back in and you can set the heights or the widths that you want for each of those cells.